Welcome back to our Music for Dummies class. This is lesson 4, what I'm calling 3-chord theory. So as always, we want to try to remind ourselves where we're at, bring ourselves up to speed, that we had one lesson where we did notes and steps. So hopefully if you've been with us, you know your notes, you've pretty much memorized them, you know what whole steps and half steps are. And we went on and we learned about scale rules, if you recall. We focused mainly on major scale, which was just rules to help you know what notes to play. Whole step, half step, and on it went. Then last lesson we focused on chords, how when you played several notes together, how you would know that they would sound good together and things of that nature. And today we're talking about 3-chord theory, and I think we're going to start applying things. You've learned enough now that we can start trying to do things, and hopefully that knowledge is going to help us do those things or understand those things and progress from there. So 3-chord theory. Here's one way of saying it. You can play the major chords from the 1, 4, and 5 notes of your scale. Whew. First, I just felt the wind blow over my hair. Well, over my head at least. But you've learned about scales. And you know that you had your 8 notes you ended up picking out from whole step, half step and stuff. And we're going to have another slide that shows the difference, how we used our numbers to find notes and chords. Now we're using numbers to figure out what chords we should play. And we'll make this clear. Hang in there. But we're going to spend quite a bit of time on this to try to drive it home. 3-chord theory. Turns out when you're in a scale, any scale, and let me go ahead and pop a graphic up so you can start seeing things. Seeing helps. We're going to use the C major scale as our example today. So there we have our C major scale. And as we start looking at it, we've found our notes again. Remember, we did our whole steps and half steps, and we had no black keys on the piano. They were all the white keys. And suddenly today we're telling you, hey, when you have your scale, you can take the 1, 4, and 5 and play the chord based off of those notes, and it's gonna sound good. And this is what's happening in blues, rock and roll, country music, even religious music, about all Western music. If you just play these, you can have the majority of the song or songs down pat by knowing this trick. So here, let's start applying that. C major scale, we have our notes laid out, and now we're saying, hey, play the 1 chord. Well, let's zoom up here. Well, that makes sense. That's my C major chord. That's the key I'm in. Of course, I'd want to play that. Makes sense. But look at this. We're also saying, hey, take the note, the 4th there in that scale. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's an F. And we're telling you, you're going to be able to play an F chord a lot. And it's always going to sound good. And not only the F chord, it's the F major chord. And finally, when I find my 5th note, my G, we're telling you, go down here, you can play your G chord on that. So the C, F, and G chord. The major chords that you will play when you're in a C major scale are going to be C, F, and G. And we're going to show you the application of this for quite a bit in a few slides, so I'm not going to pull the guitar out right now, but let's pop our notes up here. This is called 3-chord theory. Talking about the major chords you can play. They're the most common chords in our Western music, and you use the 1, 4, and 5 chords over and over, and you're going to see this pattern over and over and over in songs. So again, we could spend forever on this slide, but as always I say, you can YouTube, you can rewind it back, you can use the speed to slow it down. We're telling you that once you have your scale, you can use the 1, 4, and 5 to know which chords, which major chords sound good together. Now I've learned over the years, you can play all the other notes too, or chords based off them, they're just not major chords. So that's why this is so good to know, is these are the happy, good, if you will, fun songs and sounds, the 3 based off the major chord. So let's try to take away some of that fear and scare on this slide. you're using the scale for two different things. And I know these numbers can be overwhelming, but remember we did 1, 3, 5. That was the notes in the chord itself. Okay? When we had our scale and we said, hey, I want to play that C major chord, it's the 1, the 3, and the 5, which became, remember, the notes in my chord. As a matter of fact, we put it on the piano and we put it on the guitar and we held those 3 notes down, the 1, 3, and 5. Well, today we're teaching you another use of the same scale, you know. We're teaching you how to find the chords you need to make, which uses this knowledge. To make each chord, you need to use the 1, 3, and 5 of its scale to form that chord. Basically skipping stuff, if you will, there. But here we go. The most commonly used chords were the 1, 4, and 5. And in our case, it was the C, the F, and the G. So let's just get right to it and try to apply so that hopefully it'll start making more sense here. So we want to start using this 3-chord theory application. And we have, if you will, up there, the C major scale. We're going to look at it first. And it's the one we just talked about. And we said, hey, take the 1, 4, and 5, and we see that we get the C, F, and the G, don't we? Let me grab my pointer. There it is. The C, the 4 there was F, and the 5 was G. So there we are. So let's pull the guitar out and just see. This is similar to how we ended the last video, but get over just a little, and you will memorize those chords with your fingers, whether it's the piano or guitar, and here's your C, F, and G sounding together. There's an F, there's a C, there's your G. C, F, G, F, C. Order does not matter. It's going to sound good, but that's the main thing in music, is changing them around to come up with a song. So let's look at another example. G major scale, and if you took your time, you'd find all your notes, your whole steps and half steps, and you'd know what you are. And then remember, we have just learned that, hey, I can look at my 1, my 4, and my 5, and that ends up being G, C, D. Those are the chords that are going to sound good together. So let's do G, C, D. G, C, G, D. Let's do G. Let's do C. Let's do D, C, G. Okay. Now let's do one more. Let's say we were doing the D major scale, and we take our time, do our whole steps and our half steps, find some notes, and it's, hey, the 4 and 5 ends up being, if you will there, the D, G, A. You see that? The 1, 4, and 5 note, the chords we want based off that in a D is D, G, A. So let's look at that. Let's do D, G, A here. Here's D, G, So that's it, friends. This is how you could start applying it. This is how, first of all, yourself, as you play and practice, you see these songs over and over, and they're always G, C, D, D, G, A. Why is that? C, F, G. Well, this is why. This is why it works together, and why it might not sound good another way. These are chords that work together. And it's also the beginning of how you can get with a buddy, and they're like, I'm going to play something in C major, and you're like, oh, well, I'll play C. I know I'm probably going to be playing C, F, and G chords. It gives you a head start, a cheat to know what's coming up ahead. So much more to say, so much to apply, but our time's over already, and I hope that you can start applying all these pieces you've learned and start using the 3-chord theory.